Jeff, they always put me in your group.
Somebody got to keep me on task. All right, so who we're going to have kind of reporting out? Don't rush to volunteer. Brett, are you going to be the guy reporting? I say we nominate you to report out since you're here to facilitate this here.
I can help with taking some notes down. I think if someone else could be the report out person, I think you all probably have a better sense of what's going on in the bigger meetings than I do. So I'm glad to be backup, but if we could identify a point person, I'd feel better about that.
Mr. Fleming.
I heard my name.
You want to be the report out person to when we discuss the report back?
I actually would, but I may have to jump off early, so I'm going to say no.
Boy, don't nobody volunteer.
Out.
Who you got it, Joe?
I'll report out. I need those questions though. I like to stick to the script.
Okay.
So meeting is recording and I'm gonna pop the questions up right now. I'll leave them up for a few minutes and then we can go back into group and do the discussion part. As far as time goes, I think we've got a solid half hour in here. So I'll give you all a warning at about quarter after, and then we'll go back into the main room at 5:20.
Yeah, just a reminder for folks, because I know in the past we have not recorded the small breakouts. They are now being recorded. So as a reminder.
Be on your best behavior, Janelle?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, let's go. What recommendations do you offer us to achieve the Journey Workers and Apprenticeship? What are your thoughts, or do you have any questions? I know we threw a lot of information, at you, and I know there was a lot of questions. So we're here we can answer any questions and help make it a little more clear. Or if it made sense and you guys got it, then let's jump right into, what's your thoughts and what's your recommendations for how we can achieve the Journey Workers and our apprenticeship goals.
Well, I would just say, again, going back to my question to you, Jeff, what's the reach? Your perspective. I mean, I know you don't have hard numbers. I'm just the gut. What is this because when I look at it, it doesn't look like it's monumental, but I I don't live, eat, sleep, and drink this work. Mm-hmm. So I'm just get a sense of that. I mean, is this going to be hard? I mean, is this?
Yeah, I honestly, man, when you're talking about 109 new bodies, right, and you're breaking it up, and that's a lot of bodies to bring in and acclimate, especially when you're talking about bringing people in as apprentices, right? Especially when you're aggressively, trying to, for us going one-to-one in terms of, minority versus non-minority workers, and to be able to, bring them into that environment when I'm not sure they exist at that level. I think we're going to have to do, some creation, especially with all the work you got going on in this market right now. So, I mean, I personally think it's going to be a significant task to be successful. I think it's doable. I think we've looked at it, and if we're starting now, and Terrence has been very active in starting that process and putting people with Hamilton and putting people with the Sunt team. But it's not just going to be just like a walk in the park. That's still a lot of bodies to bring in, especially when we don't have a lot of bodies in the BIPOC, specifically the African American population. We don't have a huge. We have to go out and get those bodies and create those bodies, Joe. That's what I'm saying. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, that makes sense. And the project is slated to start in 2023, correct?
Yeah.
And so we're talking about new folks. If I were to Joe McFerrin going to becoming a apprentice today, I'm not going to make it to journey out probably, what's this, 2021? I'm looking at 2025.
Depending on the trade, depending on the craft. It could be anywhere from 2023 late to 2025 late.
Right. So that's, yeah. And the project's how long?
The project is a 4 to 5 year, well, lots changed. So again, we're basing, a lot has changed. So depending on what we do right now, it's still a 4 to 5 year. You got to throw the hybrid in there. That's a significantly different project. There'll be a lot more work created that would extend the project out significantly longer. And I don't think we have our arms around that at all to even discuss it. So we're still working off of kind of, this is what we see as it exists today.
Okay, so just doing the math, we need to start now.
Yes.
And so I'll bring in, I'm focusing on what you're saying in terms of the reach and the need. We have to get folks in and moving so that they can transition to journey in order to get at those numbers, because the numbers are 38 and 10.
Well, I think you're looking at 109 total. So
right,
yeah.
but in terms of there's
minorities.
Say it again.
In terms of minorities, is what you were breaking it down breaking out minorities, right?
No, we need clarity here. I have 48 full-time equivalent. I've got 38 journey and 10 apprentice. Full-time equivalent.
For on the minority side of the equation. Right?
So it was 106 total FTE across, for the four across the board.
Mm-hmm.
And so those numbers, so we would need to be successful, we would have to have 38 journeymen working on the project from start to finish, full time. And we would have to have 10 apprentices start to finish full time.
Yeah, that's for the gap. That's only for the gap. That's not including the journeymen that we already have in place that are minorities. But to get that gap, you're going to be looking at around that number of additional minority bodies that we're going to need that are journeymen, and additional minority bodies is actually more close, I think 11 or 12 apprentices that we're going to need.
Okay,
right?
got it.
So yeah.
That's the supplement what's already in the pipeline.
Right.
Okay, I got it.
Okay.
All right. I think I'm ready to take feedback.
Okay. Let's go. Lee, you're up. Let's go.
Hey, Jeff, thank you. Interesting discussion there between you and Joe. But before I have to go, the only observation, I kind of teed it up when I asked that question earlier, to approach some better outcomes, or just good outcomes, is I would challenge the team to consider not only that your goal be established per trade or by trade, which would force contractors to produce workers at higher paying skill levels. And then also, Jeff, based upon something that you experienced, and I'm kind of surprised that you didn't do this, is to establish an apprentice goal and a journey goal. So separate those two targets out and make them by trade, so that you're not filling the goal up with lower paying skills to make numbers and bodies, and then make it a journey goal and a apprentice goal. We found that to be a rather successful approach on our projects. The only stipulation being is that for female journeys, we made that an overall goal. as opposed to a by trade, recognizing the challenge of recruiting and maintaining women in the field, and being able to, but we did encourage some development of some successful strategies to maintain them in the field. I can't speak to that, but that's some of the things we encourage. So hope that's helpful.
Yep, wrote it down. I think we're
all right
in that direction, but yep, got it. Thank you.
Outstanding. Okay.
Bob?
Yes, how's everybody doing this evening? I could talk about these two questions for about 2 or 3 hours if everybody's got time. But just to be very brief, outreach is going to be critical. We've probably talked about all these things I'm going to talk about. Outreach is going to be critical in how it's done. Once that outreach is done, mentorship and these, journeymen are going to mentor the apprentices, but journeymen need mentorship too in a lot of instances. One very important thing is, these days is going to be daycare. There's going to have to be established daycare to support all these projects, because, apprentices can't afford daycare. Pre-apprenticeships, a lot of people that are pre-apprenticeship can't do it or couldn't do it because they couldn't afford daycare. So that would help. And then tutoring, that's that comes in the apprenticeship in school and everything too. But a lot of times I've seen many journeymen over the years, and I've been in this business for 43 years now, that needed some help just on different places, just some tutoring. So those are 4 bullet points. And like I said, I could talk a lot, but you don't want me to.
That's actually good. All that is fire. That's all very good points, Bob.
Thank you.
And yeah, and I agree with you. I mean, it's going to take a lot of mentorship. You do have to have ongoing tutoring. All that stuff is just absolutely necessary for us to be successful. Very good points. Anybody else have any comments here?
I had a clarifying question for. So I think when I think of outreach, I think of question 2. When I think of mentorship for both apprentices and journey, would that go into both areas? Would that respond? Would you put that in both of the, would that be an answer for both questions?
Absolutely. And that's critical because that's going to affect the retention. You hear Bill talked about, we use a 50% retention. For Raymore, our retention of minorities tends to be a little higher because, again, we're more culturally by nature, culturally competent in that. But those two things are mentorship and tutoring in this process is going to be very critical to keep our retention. We lessen the burden if we can retain workers, right? The more we can retain workers, the less burden it is to go out and get new workers to meet our goals, right? And so the key is to get workers in. What Bob is saying, the criticalness of child care, all the barriers that they have with pre-apprenticeship and things, we having a mechanism that we can kind of help that, right? In order to retain the workers, right? So that's going to be critical. So yeah, Joe, they go in both categories. Matt, anybody else on my team got anything they want to add? Kyle, you spent a lot on this mentorship thing and why that's so important, what Bob was saying, and maybe you can just enlighten the group because you do it day in and day out on why that, what Bob is saying, is so critical.
Yeah, I can add to that. I mean, for sure, just on the project we're on now, I mean, we had a lot of journeymen come in who weren't quite at the journeyman level. And so myself and other superintendents and field engineers, we took the time to let those workers know that any time after work or before work, if they want to take some time to go over the drawings, go over certain skill sets, we set aside time for them. And it's definitely seen a lot of people grow from just having that extra time. Because, I mean, yeah, they go to the apprenticeship classes, but sometimes it just isn't enough. And everybody learns at different paces is what we realized. And maybe hasn't been fortunate enough to work at contractors where they're really worried about people growing and learning versus just fulfilling numbers.
Again, goes back to what Bob was speaking about. Anybody else got any comments on that?
Well, I have a comment to add to the discussion. One of the things we you know, and you, I think, you know, we're fairly new. We've been doing this pre-apprenticeship work since 2019, and 90% of our participants are African American. And what we are finding is that our participants, what has been called out in terms of, we're doing an okay job getting them through our program and into an apprenticeship program. Mm-hmm. The problem is that's where we have the problem, is when they go right. And what my team has identified and called out, a couple of things. One was the mental health aspect, because the things that our folks are dealing with, trying to deal with their personal issues and dealing with the work issues it's just in the newness of this work, it's just a lot. So they talked about that. They also talked about what I call as coaching, not mentorship. And what we're going to look at doing is hiring life coaches where we can actually assign folks to our trainees and apprentices where there's daily contact about off the field stuff, the family stuff, the fact that you went from being broke to now you got $1,200 a month. You know what I mean? There's just finding out from the team, there's just so much to deal with. And so that I would offer a coach and some sort of mental health support with respect to retention, because we can get them up there, but that's a huge leap.
And Joe, man, you said a lot there, and because you understand it, but you hit the nail like on the head. And so having to be able to do, a lot of our people need counseling to be able to work through some of the issues and trauma that they have felt. And, you know, we do a lot of that stuff, you know, naturally, you know, and this whole coaching aspect of it is being able to help them understand. And that's what this whole workforce advocate position that Terrence is in. And then we're going to hire, you know, I know another body to support that, but that position is there to touch the people, right? To be that go-between, you know, to be that coach, right? To be able to help them understand, you know, life issues. And a lot of our people, you know, have a lot of life issues that they're dealing with too, right? That they have to, so it's very hard to focus. You know, I used to have a guy tell me, you know, Jeff, you're so busy, you know, trying to make a living, you can never make any money, right? So all of our people been in survival mode for just so long, trying to survive, a lot of them, right? And so now they don't know how to deal with this circumstance, and they're going to need some help with that. And I think that, I'm not sure what we can do on the job for that, but I know as individual companies, we're going to provide that coaching. We're going to provide that workforce advocate. We're going to provide the mentorship. We're going to provide the tutoring, right? We're going to start talking about fiscal, which we do all the time, how to be fiscally responsible. You know, when you're not used to having money, so you just don't go out and, you know, buy a bunch of new cars and, you know, your money, you know, a year from now, all the money you made doesn't have anything to show for. So these are all real issues. But this is a holistic approach for helping community. And that's what this job, why I'm so excited about this job, is the job provides us an opportunity to do some of these things that you and Bob and Lee are talking about. So I'm excited about that. Anything else on this here? Talk about these questions. I'm gonna start calling on people if people don't join into the conversation. I'm tired of listening to myself and Joe talk.
I've been jotting down some notes, and it looks like I've got more stuff for question number 2 than question number 1. So I'm just going to throw that out there and see if anyone has any thoughts on recommendations offering to best achieve journey worker and apprenticeship goals.
Well, I'd like to make another comment on that, just probably directly on that one, is a lot of folks just don't know that the trades are a viable option. It's just simple as that. And, I worked for Portland Public Schools for 5 years in the maintenance shop as a supervisor there. And I saw him dismantle the shop classes and everything, and that was just a horrible thing to do in my mind, because there's a whole bunch of young people that came through school that just didn't get the opportunity to see a trade.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's just, part of the outreach is to show people it's a viable option.
And I like to add to that, Bob, it's actually, for a lot of people, it should be the first option. Again, we sold this thing for everybody like college is the only answer, and that's just simply not true. The trades can be a first option for a lot of people. And as an industry, let's be honest, we've done a terrible job. Now, the school systems didn't help us for dismantling it, but this industry has been always seen as secondary versus a first choice to actually have living wage jobs and to be able to, have enough income to support a family, buy homes, and do all the things that are necessary to build wealth. And so I think that's, we own that, not just with the school systems, but even us, as far as really getting out and outreaching to people and showing them that truth. So that's a good point. Excellent.
Well, like they say, a 4-year apprenticeship is the original university.
Come on.
So, I guess I'm going to put this, what recommendations, I guess we talked about the need, but I don't know if we were clear about, or very specific about the recommendation. So are we recommending that the CMGC co-create or put together a recruitment plan and strategy? Is that what we're looking for? Are we looking for the CMGC to create a formal mentoring program that occurs before work, set aside before the job day and the end of the job day? I mean, is that where this is going in terms of recommendation? To me, that sounds like a recommendation to the CMGC that you provide mentoring, as an example, 30 minutes before the job starts and 30 minutes after the job, to help people work through some things they need to polish up on. Is that to me is a recommendation?
That would be one recommendation. Another recommendation along those lines would be to offer possibly some kind of incentive to go to community college classes too, that offer construction trades curriculum. And of course, with our apprenticeships, with all of our crafts, we do reach out, to, in a lot of ways to entice, young folks to come into our apprenticeship. So that's, that's part of it on the apprenticeship goals.
So just for clarity on the report out, are you saying, Bob, that you're recommending that the CMGC provide incentive funding for a continuing learning, say at Mount Hood Community, like you described? Is that for both journey and apprentices?
I would say journeyman. The apprentices ought to get what they need through the apprenticeship programs. They can always do a little bit more because, with our, for instance, we're affiliated with Mount Hood College, the IBEW is, and, they get almost an associate degree by the time they get through the apprenticeship to, so journeyman, maybe some.
I lost you there.
Yeah. Okay, this is all good stuff. It's good thoughts. It's creative. That's for sure. It's extremely creative.
Hey, I got another one for you, Jeff.
Okay.
Is recommending, just so I'm clear on the report out, are we recommending to the CMGC that they provide daycare? I'm just trying to get clear. I need to. It came up.
Okay, but no. I think that's more of an industry-wide problem that we need to consider how to do it. But I hope we're not recommending the JV become daddy daycare. That may not go off too good.
No,
but it's a real problem, and I think we need to be aware of it, and we need to, as a construction community, we need to, figure out ways to address this. But I hope y'all not recommending that we do that piece of it. I hope that's not what you're saying, Bob.
Absolutely what I'm saying. I mean, you're right. It's an industry-wide issue. So, that's the way it probably should be addressed, but,
So maybe what I would say can you hear me?
Yes.
It could probably be addressed on a smaller scale.
What I might call out as a recommendation is that the CMGC commit to working with community partners to address daycare in any way. It may not be, and sometimes that's signing on to a grant application or that kind of thing. I also think about it when we talk about mental health and life coaches, especially for organizations like the pre-apprenticeship that are pushing people through. I think I would recommend that you be willing to, again, endorse funding opportunities to get resources to provide those services.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, I'll make that.
So those recommendations, those are all things that we should be doing. That's just being a good citizen, right? To be able to try to connect people with the services that are already available and then support those additional services that's going to better round out your people, right? That's just being good citizens and good partners, right? So, and then for us, I'm creative about this. We're going to have some technical assistance around coaching and mentoring. We usually see that for the contractors, but maybe we can figure out some classes that how we can do to talk about some of these issues and give people away. I know my people do it on their own. Tayo and Webb, they spend a lot of time with people reviewing plans and specs on their own time, right? Because it's just simply, again, the right thing to do. And I know that the Hamilton Stunt team has done a ton of that, right? In that process, we've all done it, right? And we're all committed to that. So a lot of that's going to happen. And then we're going to have, again, people in place like, the workforce advocates. And that's going to be their primary duty to interface directly with the people, check in on how they're doing, and to help them move forward.
And just to call attention to the pop-up that I think you all got, we have about a minute and a half left in the breakout room. So if there's any final thoughts, feel free to share.
Megan, Matt, we haven't heard from y'all. Chime in, say something.
Jeff, I don't have a lot to add. I mean, I heard a question, is this a tough lift? And, I'm learning this stuff from you guys, and I know it is. But the good news is we have a plan. And early on, one of our first meetings, like one of the ODOT consultants said, where are you going to get these hundreds of apprentices that you need? And I think that Bill's led us through his methodology and mathematics to show that why it's a tough lift, it's maybe not as bad as some people originally thought, and we've got a roadmap. It's not something that we just show up every day and say, hey, let's get better at this, and so to me, that's the encouraging part of what's going on.
And I'll just add, I feel really lucky that we've got the JV that we do, particularly with Jeff Moreland and Bill Bruce, proven experts having done this before. ODOT's not good at this stuff. That's exactly why we're here. And so I'm just really happy that we've got the right team to help work through these issues, and frankly, the right COAC members to help push us in that accountability too. So thank you.